What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today's episode is going to be on the pleasure seeker. We are going to continue the series on the 8 financial archetypes. If you haven't watched my video on how to heal your relationship with money, go ahead and watch that. That's a very important introductory video for this series. I lay out the distinction between all 8 archetypes. I also give you some very important foundational stuff to get to know so that you can kind of recontextualize your perspective on money. And those concepts include getting to know the wanting mind, understanding your core story, and seeing where your dominance lies in the archetypes, like which archetypes you resonate with the most. Now, we all have all the archetypes in us, but 1, 2, maybe 3 of them are going to outweigh the rest of them. And what we want to do here is create more balance. So if you resonate very strongly with the pleasure seeker, this video is for you. So the pleasure seeker is characterized by somebody who is really good at enjoying the sense pleasures of life, but probably doesn't have the best financial responsibility. Now, I mentioned that in the introductory video, but let's dive a little deeper into what might make you a pleasure seeker. So you are probably a pleasure seeker if you save less than 5% of your annual income, if your debt outweighs your assets, if your spending habits create tension within your loved ones, including but not limited to your spouse or your partner, especially your spouse or your partner. And if you tend to go and splurge and kind of use spending as a remedy to when you're feeling low. So, if this sounds like you, we have some practices for you here today that are really going to help you to kind of become more aware of your habits and how you can go about changing them. So I mentioned that if you go watch the other video, I talk about the core story. So within any of the archetypes, you have this sort of core story that you believe, this like belief system that sorts you into one of or many of the archetypes more strongly than the other ones. So for me, my upbringing kind of put me into the guardian archetype. So I'm a little bit more frugal with my money, which is kind of the opposite of the pleasure seeker. So it's actually a good practice for me to allow myself to be a little bit more of a pleasure seeker sometimes so I can have more balance within the archetypes. But like I said, go back and watch that first video. What you're going to want to do is get an understanding of your core story that helps you understand why you are a pleasure seeker. So why do you behave the way you do? What is it in your life that made you behave this way? So an example of a core story for somebody that might be a pleasure seeker is if you were the youngest of like 8 children, growing up at Christmas time, maybe you always got your older brother and sister's gifts from the year before as your gift. They were kind of hand-me-downs. That might be one of your most painful memories around money, and that's often what helps us or not helps us, but that's often what results in us building our core story is our most painful memory around money. So somebody like this might very well go ahead and grow up to be a pleasure seeker because they don't want to experience those wounds that they felt when they were a kid, and they don't want their kids to feel that. So they might go ahead and always be splurging on new material goods for themselves. Just a small example. So it's very important to understand that the wanting mind, the desires that we have, are deeply fulfilled not by feeling the sensory pleasure, which is important for humans to do, but the deep fulfillment that comes from fulfilling our desires comes from the absence of them. So if I want a new car and then I go get that new car, I'm deeply satisfied, not because I got the new car, but because I am now pleased with my current circumstance. I'm not desiring something else. So this is sort of the whole doctrine that Buddhism is founded on, is being free from the burden of desire. So we could do this without being impulsive and spending our money very irresponsibly more than we have, acquiring debt. The way that you're going to be able to do this most effectively is by developing a meditation practice. So you can go ahead and find some resources on how to most effectively develop a meditation practice. I have videos on the benefits of meditation and how to meditate for beginners, so you can go ahead and find those on my channel as well. But developing a meditation practice essentially is going to get you more acquainted with being content as you are. So not having that burden of desire constantly looming. Now, it's important to recognize that as a pleasure seeker, this is our coping mechanism, is seeking pleasure through spending money on material goods or maybe experiences. So it's a coping mechanism we have because we're turning our back on this underlying emptiness that we might be experiencing, which is another way that meditation is going to help you here, because meditation turns you around and makes you face that underlying emptiness and befriend that underlying emptiness, and you'll start to notice that it's actually a beautiful thing. I highly recommend, just popped into my mind, the book Emptiness Dancing by Adyashanti, who is a spiritual teacher that resides in California. And Emptiness Dancing kind of points to the whole nature of reality as emptiness, and it's a beautiful read, and it'll shatter your current paradigm of reality. But anyways, let's not get too off track. So you want to make sure you're paying attention to what it is that you're seeking to avoid. So that's another thing you could do is, firstly, just ask yourself, what is it that you're seeking to, what is your pleasure seeking a coping mechanism for? And now you can go handle that in a more sustainable way instead of coping with it in ways that are going to rack you up a bunch of debt. So, I have an exercise for you that's going to really help when you're about to make a purchase. You're going to think about this exercise. And it's going to kind of make you more aware. It's going to make you a more conscious individual in terms of how you're spending your money. And it's going to make you more responsible as well. You're going to accumulate some more savings. So, what you're going to do is you're going to make a list of the 5 most valuable things or ways of being for your life. So just for time's sake, I'll give you an example. The top 3 things on my list might be exercise and healthy living. So healthy living through exercise and healthy eating. The second thing on my list might be spending time with loving company. The third thing on my list might be having new experiences that are synonymous with my growth as a person. And now you can go ahead and say, what are 5 things that I spent some money on this week? So maybe I spent some money on a voucher to go skydiving, which I did last year, and it was amazing. I actually have a video on that too. So maybe I spent some money on that. Maybe I spent some money on a gym membership. And maybe I spent some money on a new pair of pants and a shirt. Now, if I'm somebody who doesn't have good spending habits, I can go look at this list of the things that I spent money on now and say, okay, how do these purchases support my values or my ways of being? The first list that I made. Well, something that I find very valuable, one of my top values, is new experiences, right? That's on my list. There it is. Skydiving. That's an experience that's synonymous with my growth as a person. It made me push my comfort zone. Maybe I'm scared of heights. I loved the experience. That's what I find valuable in my life. Beautiful. So that's supportive of my values. Number 2, my gym membership. That's supportive of my healthy lifestyle, which I value. Item number 3, the new pants and new shirt that I bought. Well, I actually already have a full wardrobe, so maybe those purchases, like when I think about it, maybe those were more impulsive and I actually didn't need those. And you know what? I bought them last week and I still haven't worn them. And actually, the last time I bought a shirt, I've only worn that shirt like once or twice. Just an example. So maybe that shirt and pants that I bought wasn't supportive to my values. I mean, I already have a full wardrobe. It's not like I needed them. So now I can go back and see in retrospect, okay, well, that was a purchase that I probably didn't need to make. I could have had that extra $60 sitting in my bank account. So this is an exercise that you can do that's going to help you become more mindful in retrospect. But also, and this is where it's most valuable, when you approach a new purchase, I want you to ground this exercise in your mind and say, okay, how does this purchase support my values? And if it doesn't, you can go without it. So that's going to be a really helpful exercise for you to kind of recontextualize the way that you think about spending your money. It might make you a little bit less impulsive, and it's going to make you more conscious, more aware. You are going to support your values with your purchases instead of just being impulsive and squandering your money, and now you're in debt. So I'm going to skip over all the practical. I mean, this is very practical. That's a practical exercise. But I'm going to skip over the obvious advice that you might have expected to hear of, make yourself a savings account and then go ahead and make sure you set aside at least 30% of your earnings into that savings account at every paycheck. That's very obvious stuff. And if you didn't know that that's how you can have more savings and be less impulsive, go ahead and do that. There you go. That's some advice too. But it's really not about the money. That's something that you can do that's going to maybe force your hand a little bit into putting the money in your account instead of spending it at the store. But to make lasting changes, we have to recontextualize our relationship with money. And that's what we're aiming to do with that exercise. And that's what we're aiming to do with developing an understanding over the wanting mind and developing a meditation practice. In France, there's a Buddhist community called Plum Village. I believe it was started by Thich Nhat Hanh, who is an author of many amazing books, and a Buddhist monk. In France, there's a Buddhist community founded by, I believe it was founded by him, Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Vietnamese Buddhist monk. And in this community, they don't earn any money. They are given, I believe it's 40 euros either per week or per month. Now their resources are provided. They have places to stay, and they have minimal food to eat because they don't expend a lot of energy. A lot of their time is spent in meditation. But with this money, they often have some left over at the end of the month. And they give it away. But these people are not deprived from sensory pleasure at all. Because their time is spent in meditation, they're much more conscious of their senses. And author of the book, It's Not About the Money, and developer of this archetypal system that we're learning about here, Brent Kessel, went to this village and he explained how the meditation, at the end of the meditation retreat that he had there, he had felt as much sense pleasure in that 1 week as he did in any other week of his life, if not a lot more. And I can vouch for this myself, having a developed meditation practice, that you become a lot more appreciative and a lot more conscious and aware of sense pleasure that comes from the smallest things. That's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave me a comment. Let me know if you think that exercise helps. Give me a like and subscribe to my video for more content. And lastly, if you want one-on-one coaching with me, you can DM me on Instagram or send me an email with coaching call as the subject. The first one is free for anybody who wants it. That's it for today, guys. Take care. Thanks for watching.